What's up everybody, it's your boy Randall D, TechGeek back again with another video. Today we're going to take a look at the Canon Rebel T6 DSLR camera. Take a look at the box. Inside the box you got a couple items here. You have a 55mm lens, you have a 300mm zoom lens, and a shoulder bag with a 16GB SD card. So take a look at the box. It's a pretty nice sized box. I couldn't even fit the whole box in the frame of this video. But turning the box to the side, it go over some of the specs of the camera. The camera has Wi-Fi built in, it has NFC built in for easy pairing and transfer of photos to your phone. It comes in full HD at 1080p 30 frames per second. It has an 18 megapixel CMOS sensor, which is kind of dated, and it shoots at a high ISO of 6400. Towards the top of the box, it just lets you know that you can transfer photos and video to the camera and your phone via Wi-Fi. It's a pretty good camera, but there's some drawbacks. Let's go over that right now. Actually, before we talk about the drawbacks of the camera, let's take a look at some of the items that came inside the box. Now, this is one of the lenses that came with the camera. If you buy the kit, this is the 300mm Canon lens that came with it. Now, this lens is pretty nice and fancy, nice and big and black, just how she likes it. But jokes aside, it's a nice fancy lens. It has a nice long range zoom to it. This is probably one of the lenses I've used the least amount of time. It has autofocus and manual focus. There's no image stabilization on this lens. For the most part, you have to use a stabilizer on your own, like a tripod. But once you do get it nice and stable, you are able to zoom in pretty far if you need to zoom in on people's license plates and people windows and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a nice fancy lens though. You can zoom in really far and the image will still be considerably sharp for how far you zoom in. So it's nice they did include this lens with the camera. I think this lens alone costs at least $149.99 by itself. So nice fancy lens, one of the items that do come inside the box. The other lens that comes inside the box is this 18 to 55mm lens. Now this is the main lens you'll probably be shooting with the most. As you can see, you can just rotate the lens to the camera and it snaps in place. This lens is probably the most important lens of the camera. Look at the side here, you got autofocus and manual focus, and then when you turn the camera on, you're good to go. So like I said, this is probably the lens you'll use most of the time. The zoom lens you won't really use too much, or at least I couldn't really find too many cases to use because I'm not out here stalking people. But for the most part, this is probably the lens you will use majority of the time. Long story short, this lens right here, it gets the job done. Alright, so next, let's talk about some of the reasons why I don't like this camera. First of all, when you buy the camera, this lens right here, the 50mm lens, this lens does not come with the camera. This is the absolute most important lens of them all. It does not even come with the camera. I had to buy this lens separately. So this 50mm lens I had to buy separate, costs about $149. Then you gotta pay tax. You're looking at about $160 after tax approximately to buy this lens. Now what's so special about this lens? This lens gives you that perfect portrait effect that you get when you see on photos, and the portrait effect is what's being advertised on today's latest high-end phones such as the iPhone 10, the Galaxy S8, the Galaxy Note, all those nice high-end phones. When you take a picture and the background is nice and blurry, this is the lens you need to get that done. And this lens does not come with the camera. For some reason they include this nice black long, that's what she said, this nice zoom lens that you would probably never use, when they could have included this 50mm small lens, but they didn't do that. It's all about money. They want you to pay for that separate. So if you want them nice portrait pictures with a nice bokeh effect around the subject, you gotta buy this 50mm lens that costs about $149.99 if you want that nice effect. Now the real reason why I don't like this camera is because of the video department on this camera. This camera shoots video at 720p 60 frames per second and 1080p at a maximum of 30 frames per second. It does not shoot 4K at all. The problem with this camera is the low light video capture. The low light video capture of this camera is just terrible. When you try to shoot low light video, there's a lot of noise. Not to mention this camera does not have a mic in, so you will have to use a separate audio source if you try to record audio at nice and crisp volume. Now don't get me wrong, now this is still a pretty good DSLR camera. It just depends on what your needs are. With the Canon Rebel T6, this camera specializes in taking photos and the photography world. So if you need to go to a wedding or anniversary and your main job is to take pictures, not video, just pictures, this is the camera to get. Pick up this camera for the low price of $449.99, which I'm selling mine for $400. Get you that 55mm lens so you get that bokeh effect on your portrait photos and you're good to go. This camera takes beautiful pictures. The problem for me is the fact that this camera is not for YouTube. This is not a camera for videos, which is the downfall of this camera. The main priority of this camera is photos, and me being a YouTuber and me wanting to specialize in doing video, recording, starting to get into marketing or shooting music videos, I will need a high-end camera such as the Sony A6300 or one of them other high-end cameras that specializes in low light video capture or a mirrorless camera. This is not a camera if you're trying to do video. So long story short, if you're trying to start a YouTube channel, do not get this camera. Only get this camera if you're looking to take photos. So that kind of wraps up my overview of the Canon Rebel T6. It is what it is. It's your boy Randall D, TechGeek RLD. You know my slogan, they gonna learn today. Hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends and family members, subscribe to the channel. It is what it is, and I'm out. One more time before I leave. They gonna learn today. All right, everybody.